Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Choda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Now, some new information has come to light about what is indeed included in this new stimulus package that essentially is about to be voted on tomorrow. To the best of my knowledge, the information that we have, we do not expect a vote on the stimulus bill tonight, but I can give you some information about what is going to be included in this bill. The $300 a week is going to be for 10 weeks, not 11 weeks. It's going to be for 10 weeks, not 11 weeks. That's number one. Number two, the $600 stimulus check. There are stimulus checks for children. It does not look like adult dependents are included. There were some pretty strong comments from the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and I'll play those comments and I'll show you those comments, and some pretty strong comments from Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri. So I wanted to show you folks comments from both the Democrat as well as the Republican. In all fairness, and there's some pretty strong comments. I was particularly impressed with some of the things that Josh Hawley said, and I'll let you listen to them for yourself. We'll watch them together. I do want to say one thing, and by the way, these I want to give credit to Josh Hawley for saying this. And when he said it, I have to be honest with you. I said to myself, I agree with that sentiment. Before I show you, before I give you the information, again, I want to give Josh Hawley credit for this sentiment because he said it. I don't get credit. Josh Hawley said, and I agree that you should be thanked. I think we need to thank the people of America for being so patient, for being so, for suffering in silence, if you will. And I want to be clear, I have done a video on the channel talking about how the US government makes money and how the US government spends money. The majority of the money that the United States government makes comes from the taxpayer, comes from the middle income taxpayer. It's not Amazon, Walmart, Target. It's not these duties from China and all these levies on China that pay the bills of the United States government. It is the federal income taxes of the middle income taxpayer. That's it. That's the bottom line. I definitely think when you folks get a chance. By the way, we'll include a link in this video that where you can click through to that video on how the U.S. government gets money and spends money. I think you're probably going to need. I'm not kidding. I think you're going to need a drink when you watch that video because you'll realize that the majority of the income of the United States government comes from the middle income taxpayer. But let's get down to business and let's see what we have going on. And House Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have confirmed that the moratorium for federal evictions is going to be extended, and there's $25 billion for renters. So that is one thing that is definitely something that is encouraging. Now, there is some more encouraging news, and again, credit to Jeff Stein from the Washington Post for reporting this. You'll see this. So here's what we have. We have $300 a week, everybody, in unemployment benefits. I can confirm that this is for 10 weeks, not 11 weeks. Now, the reason I say this is because the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said this on the floor of the Senate today. Could we get a surprise? And could the final bill be 11 weeks? Gosh, this year has been full of surprises. By the way, funny, this is true story, true story. My kids wanted pizza for dinner. So I went and picked up the pizza, and there was a liquor store right next to the pizza place, and I bought myself a big bottle of vodka. I'm a vodka drinker, and the guy behind the desk was like, "Oh, what a day!" And I looked at him and I said, "What a year!" He's like, yeah. He started laughing. This has been an unbelievable year, everybody. So let me get back to the news. So we have $300 a week in unemployment benefits. Okay, let me just adjust this a wee bit. We have $300 a week in unemployment benefits. We have $600 per person checks. It does not look like children are going to be included. We have $284 billion in Paycheck Protection Program money for small businesses, $82 billion for schools, $27 billion for transit, $25 billion for renters, and an extension of the eviction moratorium. $13 billion for programs like the SNAP program, vaccine money for vaccine distribution, which was always going to be on the cards. Billing legislation, I've alluded to this. This had to do with medical billing, and $10 billion for childcare. And these are the things, guys, that did not make it. Okay, these are the things that unfortunately did not make it. These At the time I'm recording this video, unless there are last minute surprises, these are the things that are out, everybody. Retroactive unemployment insurance, in other words, going back beyond the last week of December, beyond where we are now, out. Unemployment of $600 a week for the spring and the summer, meaning, it ended in July. No federal unemployment booster for August, September, October, November, and pretty much all of December. No unemployment benefit booster. No checks for adult dependents. No checks for immigrants. By the way, the GOP, the Republican Party, wasn't going to allow that last part. Direct aid for state and local governments is not discussed right now. Democrats had asked for $1 trillion. Guess what? It didn't happen. You'll hear Chuck Schumer talk about that, which is quite interesting. The liability shield that the Republicans wanted is out. Hazard pay for essential workers is out. So some pretty substantial adjustments, everybody, in what is in and what is out in this. So I want our viewers and subscribers to know that a bunch of things unfortunately didn't make it, but a bunch of things did indeed make it into the final bill. House Speaker Pelosi did say that she's going to be speaking soon about this. So as soon as House Speaker Pelosi makes an announcement, we'll be sure to I'll be sure to report that on my channel. Speaking of reports, House Speaker Pelosi did send a letter to House Democrats touting provisions from the bill. We'll include a link to all of these resources in the description section below. Let's take a look at this letter, everybody. Let's take a closer look so that you folks can see the letter here. All right, so the first page of the letter says Leader Schumer negotiated a solution to the To-Me provision, which was a radical, unacceptable poison pill designed to hamstring our nation's response to the historic economic crisis of COVID and any future economic crisis. Now, again, I just want to be clear. I just want to be as clear as I can, folks. I do believe that both sides are going to want to take credit for this. Both sides are going to want to say, it was me who did this, it was me who did that. The truth is, everybody failed us for a long time, and now suddenly everybody's decided to come together. So, interpret that however you want, but don't be surprised if both sides try to take credit for what's going on right now. I thought there were some pretty strong comments, to be honest, from the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, which I'll share with you. I'll actually show you those comments. And comments from the Republican senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley. Really impressive character, really impressive senator, his comments. And he said, I want to thank the American people for their patience. And, he basically implied that, our lawmakers, our senators and our congressmen and our congresswomen work for you, which is the truth. It is the truth, because because the taxes that you pay, it's, the taxpayers from middle income America account for more than 70% of the income of the United States government. So that is some pretty astonishing. Those are some astonishing numbers. You might think that big companies contribute. Nope, it's actually you who contributes to the income of the U.S. government. So let's take a look at some of the comments from House Speaker Pelosi. House Speaker Pelosi said that there's strong support for businesses. Let's zoom in a little bit so you folks can see this. She said Democrats secured critical funding and policy changes to help small businesses, including minority-owned businesses and nonprofits, recovering from the pandemic, according to House Speaker Pelosi. So let me just move this a little bit here, just a moment. Yeah, so she said that the agreement includes over $284 billion for first and second forgivable PPP loans, extending PPP eligibility for nonprofits and local newspapers, TV and radio broadcasters, key modifications to PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, to serve the smallest businesses and struggling nonprofits and better assist independent restaurants, and includes $15 billion in dedicated funding for live venues, independent movie theaters, and cultural institutions. The agreement also includes $20 billion for targeted EIDL grants. So there will be EIDL money, everybody, which are critical to many small businesses on Main Street. And then House Speaker Pelosi also talks about the community development financial institutions and minority depository institutions. So the money includes essentially a round of payments for essentially institutions that were left out of the first version of the Paycheck Protection Program. So, by the way, I'll provide you with a link to this so you can go through it. It includes rental assistance. Democrats secured. This is Chuck Schumer essentially announced that he was the one who secured this. Secured $25 billion in assistance for rental assistance for families struggling to stay in their homes, and an extension of the eviction moratorium. Strengthens the low-income housing tax credit. And now this is the big one: direct payment checks. This is interesting. This is a letter from House Speaker Pelosi. And like I said, they want to take credit. House Speaker Pelosi is saying Democrats secured a new round of direct payments worth up to $600 per adult and per child, also ensuring that mixed status families receive payments. So this is interesting, everybody. So what this, by the way, I just want to be clear. Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, would disagree that Democrats secured this. Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, who basically was going to be like, I'll block everything, he would also, beg to disagree. But again, this is a letter from Speaker Pelosi that says that Democrats secured a $600 check. And by the way, that mixed family provision, to the best of my knowledge, refers to what Senator Marco Rubio from Florida wanted, which is basically that if a US citizen is married to a non citizen, then that family should be eligible. Basically, that family should also get stimulus checks. All the caretakers in that family. So that is my interpretation. I'll dig deeper into that in our channel in the future. But let's get back to the screen share. So there are direct payment checks, everybody, including a mixed status families receiving payments as per House Speaker Pelosi. And let's take a look at the next part of this. Now, this is the important part, everybody. So this will strengthen the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit that has to do with taxes, and you can talk to an accountant about that. It supports paid sick leave, so it provides a tax credit to support employers offering paid sick leave, which also was important, which was expiring at the end of the year. The employee retention tax credit, basically it allows workers. It's another kind of tax credit to help keep workers in their jobs during COVID closures. It essentially incentivizes employers to keep their staff on payroll. So, and this is where things get important, everybody. Democrats, this is a letter from Speaker Pelosi. Democrats averted, according to Speaker Pelosi, the sudden expiration of unemployment insurance benefits for millions and added a $300 a week unemployment enhancement for Americans out of work. By the way, the language of all of these from all the parties essentially is such that why different sides are taking credit, right? It's because of the Georgia Senate runoff races that are coming in 2 weeks. That'll determine who controls the United States Senate. So super interesting there. So $300 a week, and it says Democrats secured $13 billion in the SNAP program, money for education and childcare as well. So there is a good deal. There is a good deal there that the Democrats say they did. So this was all of it, everybody. These were all the comments from House Speaker Pelosi. This is basically what House Speaker Pelosi said was in her. This is what she said in her letter to Democrats that was just sent. So we have all of this information just coming in, everybody. And House Speaker Pelosi, as we are speaking, is actually about to go live. And here's a tweet on your screen. This is actually from House Speaker Pelosi. I'll actually show you this tweet live. This is House Speaker Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer is actually speaking right now. Why don't we watch this together, everybody? Because this is happening as we are speaking. So let's see what Chuck Schumer is saying, and let's all of us watch this together, everybody. Let's watch.
So it is a lot of money. Unfortunately, the troubles are so deep, the abyss is so long, that we need more. And this is just a first step. This is an emergency. We need a second bill to continue dealing with the emergency and to start stimulating our economy so we get back to where we were. And that will be job number one in the new Biden administration. And whether we have the majority in the Senate or the minority, we Democrats are going to push like anything to get a bigger, stronger bill. This bill is a good bill. Tonight is a good night. But it is not the end of the story. It is not the end of the job. Anyone who thinks this bill is enough does not know what's going on in America, does not look into the eyes of a small business owner who's losing his business. There are a lot of things in this bill that help New York. I'm very proud of the mass transit provisions. I'm very proud of the Save Our Stages provisions. And when it comes to state and local, even though the Republicans were relentless against it, we found other ways to aid the states. So the states will get at least some of the aid they need. The localities and the tribes will get some of the aid they need. But the Republican relentlessness against state aid is just befuddling. Why is it any different when someone who works for the local government loses his or her job and can't feed their kids, or someone from a small business loses it? They're all for helping the small businesses, so are we, because they employ people. But what's the difference between that and state and local governments where people are also losing their jobs and can't feed their families? Ideology gets in the way. Ideology gets in the way. But this bill gives us hope and confidence that we can do more, and we will do more. We must do more. And when we come back in January, that will be job number one, to fill in the gaps, the many gaps left by this bill, and to make sure that this bill, a strong measure, does the job by making sure it gets the money to the people as it was intended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader, and thank you for your leadership.
Now let's listen. Now let's listen to what House Speaker Pelosi had to say. Chuck Schumer did have some other comments on the floor of the Senate earlier today, and important comments from Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri. Very important comments. I'll be playing those as well because I want you to hear from both sides. Let's take a look at what the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is saying.
And they're recognizing the role of the states in that. And then so many other things, whether it's education, transportation, so many initiatives that do help the states. But I associate myself with your comments. We have $325 billion in this legislation for small business. It's bipartisan. We support that. However, if we had $325 billion for state and local government, our heroes, our healthcare workers who risk their lives to save lives, and now they might lose their jobs. Our police and fire, first responders, some of the first on the scene when they have to minister to the needs of a victim of the coronavirus. Our sanitation, transportation, we said, food workers, our teachers, the custodians of our children. We are not forgetting them. We're going to go forward and help them and recognize and honor them for how important they are to enable us to live the lives that we live. And so again, right now we had a readout of the relief package, and now we're going through the omnibus in a few short moments. So I have a time for a couple questions. Yes, sir.
Quick question. Given how hard it was to get this deal, for May you were fighting. Are you under any illusion it's going to be easy to get this Part 2 next year?
I believe in public sentiment, you know that. And we have a great leader who has the confidence of the people that he is there for them. Joe Biden is. And I think the soapbox, the bully pulpit that he has to say, we're here for you. We know what you need, and we are going to fight the fight for you. No, I think we're going to have a much easier time than we've had with a Republican Senate and a Republican president. Listen.
Let me just say something. The number one reason we didn't get the bill we needed was the Republican Senate. And Donald Trump just obfuscated the whole issue. A Democratic president, Joe Biden, will be able to focus the American people's attention on a Senate, the Republican members of the Senate, who are obstructing, getting in the way of what they need. If Joe Biden says we need $1,200 checks instead of the $600, they didn't have any money for checks in their bill. Well, he'll focus on the American people. If we feel we need more money for unemployment insurance, he'll focus on the American people. And I believe the Republicans who have been able to hide under Trump's circus almost will no longer be able to do it. I am very optimistic that we can get a lot more done in a Senate, certainly if there's a Democratic majority, but even if a Republican majority remains. With a new president who's going to focus the issue, he said he's making COVID his number one issue. Things will be easier, better, and will produce even more.
And on that score, so many of you have reported that we have delays because of bickering. It isn't bickering. It's a big difference in how we meet the needs of the American people. A budget should be a statement of our values. Clearly, we have a different set of values when we're giving $150 billion to the wealthiest people in America to get the CARES Act passed, and shortchanging those who need money, who need the money more, and who's receiving that money injects demand into the economy. White shirt, yes.
Given all the demands still out there that you've talked about, how large a package would you like to see President-elect Biden introduce next year as president, and how much money in state and local aid do you think should be in that package?
Well, we'll make a judgment all the time about what the needs are. I think that when you see the surge in the coronavirus, you know that we cannot just think it's over or that we can ignore it. The denial, the delay, the distortion, the calling it a hoax has caused hundreds of thousands of deaths, not all of them attributed to President Trump, but most of them. They could have been avoided. So this is a matter of life and death, the lives of the American people and the livelihood of our economy and their economic security. So make a judgment as we go forward as to what has changed and what may be for the better or maybe for the worse as we go forward. Mr. Leader, did you want to speak to? Let's go.
I think
Yeah.
we're going to have a more robust bill on state and
you
local
have that?
and many other issues under President Biden's administration than we've had now.
Yeah, and again, the difference, people will see the difference. And I do think that there'll be some Republican senators who will see the light when the American people see what the difference is.
Those are pretty significant statements right there.
Also, we succeeded in removing a nasty corporate immunity provision, which would have prevented even the most reckless employers from having recourse. And, of course, we allowed the Fed to move forward. The Toomey sabotage was undone. So it's not just what's in the bill, but what we got out of the bill that's important as well. So 3 things about this bill. 1, more relief than any bill but the CARES bill. Good shot in the arm to the economy. 2, lots of help for people in many different ways, which we've outlined. By the way, none of which were in McConnell's bill. Unemployment insurance, McConnell's bill, 0. Enhanced UI. Direct payments, 0. SNAP, 0. Rental assistance, 0. Transportation, 0. CDFI, 0. SBA grants, 0. SAMHSA, 0. COVID research, NIH, 0. Broadband, 0. His bill had next to nothing in it, so he is saying, you know, that this bill is close to his bill. Thank God it isn't. Thank God it isn't.
Well, to be exact, what he did say, which is amusing, it falls in the ballpark of what Senate Republicans have proposing since the summer, I guess it was. It falls in the ballpark. What ballpark is that? But let me just say, to the extent that we can work in a bipartisan way, we're happy to do so. As the distinguished leader said, this is a big bill, second only to the CARES Act, which we worked together on changing it from a corporate trickle-down bill to a working people bubble-up bill, except they still got their $150 billion for the wealthiest people in America. But as we go forward on all of this, to avoid what they tried to do with the liability, a Civil Rights Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, Fair Labor Practices Act, OSHA, you name it, they were trying to prevent people from having any safety in the courts in many categories that had nothing to do with the coronavirus. And when I asked one of the Republican senators, why do you have the Americans with Disabilities Act on your agenda to prevent them from filing a complaint? He said, let me have the He said, do exactly this. Let me have the Chamber of Commerce call you and tell you why. I said, well, don't waste their time or mine. Right now, I have to go vote, so thank you all very
Why
much.
is this better than the Mnuchin proposal? He proposed $1.8 trillion.
That's it, everybody. I don't. Gosh, whew, that was a pretty interesting press conference. You guys saw it for yourself. You and I saw it live. And by the way, this is. I just want to be clear. This is the Democrats' perspective. I can tell you that Republicans will have a completely different perspective. I want to be. I want to present both sides on our channel, and I want you to be the judge. Let's actually take a look at what the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said earlier today on the floor of the Senate. Which, by the way, those are the comments that were alluded to by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just now. What I'm going to do now is show you some comments from the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate today. After that, I'm going to go into some detailed comments from the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. And by the way, what he mentioned to us here on this live feed that we saw was just a sort of a preamble of some more detailed comments he gave. And then towards the end, I'll show you some very interesting comments from Josh Hawley, from the senator from Missouri, the Republican senator from Missouri, who basically said, I want to thank the American people for waiting this long. I have also learned as this video was being filmed that the Trump administration has secured breaks for restaurant meals as well. I'll be covering that towards the end of our video. But let's now take a look at what the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell actually said earlier today. And by the way, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said this afterwards. He said it after he announced that help was on the way. In other words, first he talked about the fact that help was on the way, and then he essentially blamed the Democrats for the delay. Let's take a look at this. It's very important here, guys, because if you're looking at things closely, you'll see that on the one hand there is some kumbaya about the fact that there is a stimulus bill, but on the other hand, both sides are taking credit and both sides are now starting to point blame, as we are 2 weeks away from the Senate runoff races in Georgia, which will determine control of the Senate. Let's see comments from Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate earlier today, and then we'll jump into some other comments from. Let's see some comments from the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate today, and after that we'll jump into comments from the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Josh Hawley. Let's see what McConnell said.
I stand from where Senate Republicans stand. There's no reason why this urgent package could not have been signed into law multiple months ago. For months, Senate Republicans have consistently supported a targeted rescue package under $1 trillion focused on the same kinds of policies that we've actually settled on today. As far back as July and all autumn, Republicans have consistently supported a targeted package right in the ballpark of this total amount with exactly the same kinds of policies in the mix. The package that will shortly become law falls exactly within the ballpark of what Senate Republicans have been proposing and trying to pass since last summer. This is eerily similar to what we were trying to pass last summer. Compare the shape of this major agreement with the shape of what I proposed all the way back in late July. Yes, some fine details are different. There's no doubt this new agreement contains input from our Democratic colleagues. It is, of course, bipartisan, but those matters could have been settled a long time ago as well. So why did it take all this time? We know why. We've heard Democrats say openly they were not willing to deal all summer and fall, but are willing now because they have a president-elect of their own political party. That's not my accusation, Mr. President. That's their admission. They've been pretty candid about it. So look, I'm glad we've gotten this done. My Democratic colleagues and I have had good discussions this past week. But both parties have a lot to be proud of, but I really regret that some on the Democratic side decided that partisan presidential politics were more important than getting urgent and non-controversial relief out the door much sooner to families who have needed this help badly. The progress of this past week could have happened in July or August or September or October. Senate Republicans were advocating for a package just like this one all along in real time. I just wish our partners on the other side had put political calculations aside and worked with us to make this happen a long time ago. However, with that said, I appreciate the earnest conversations of the past week. I want to thank the Democratic leader, Speaker Pelosi, Leader McCarthy, as well as, in particular, Secretary Mnuchin, who's been tireless in these discussions throughout. Both sides in both chambers have really stepped up and worked hard to get this done. We'll be moving forward with historic pandemic relief and full-year funding legislation for the federal government as well, and I hope we can do this as promptly as possible.
So let me know if you agree. Let me know if you agree with the comments of the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, or if you agree with the perspective from Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. It's very clear, guys. If you watch the video closely and if you listen to what our elected officials are saying, we're getting different bits of information from both sides, and nothing could be more indicative of the different bits of information than the clip that you're about to see right now. You're about to see a clip with the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who again spoke on the floor of the Senate, and Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri. Now, the clip is a little bit grainy, so excuse the quality of the clip, but they said this today on the floor of the Senate, and this is from C-SPAN. And, you know, I'm a nerd. I watch C-SPAN and I watch all of these proceedings. But before I do that, I want to show you some information that just came in, everybody. And this information is that the White House has secured a tax break for corporate meal expenses. By the way, this is what Chuck Schumer called the 3 martini deduction in the draft of the emergency economic relief package, and Democrats agreed to it in exchange for larger earned income tax credit, child tax credits. And, Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Pelosi, you heard them say that on our channel when we watched the video live, that it'll be much easier to get more stimulus relief next year when President-elect Biden is in the White House. Do you agree with that? Let me know if you agree with that. Nothing seems to be easy. Nothing seems to be easy as far as Congress is concerned. We've seen quite a bit of drama. Let me know what you think and whether you agree, whether it'll be easy for further stimulus to be passed. Right now, I'm going to play a video with Chuck Schumer, who spoke on the floor of the Senate today. Again, please excuse me because of the quality of the video is a little bit grainy, but it's important to hear what he says. And then we'll roll into what Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri, said. Very strong comments from Josh Hawley. You might get a bit emotional listening to some of Josh Hawley's comments, so make sure you watch this video all the way through to the end. I'll also be interacting with some of the comments as we watch these clips together. Let's just jump right in and look at Chuck Schumer and Josh Hawley right now.
Here at the end of the year, reason has prevailed, sweet reason, and will now deliver a package of almost $1 trillion. And that matters, not for any one party. It matters for the American people. Because we increased the size of this bill, expanded its reach, more Americans will receive assistance before the holidays. For Americans who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own, this bill will throw out a safety net. Initially, Republicans were ready to let enhanced unemployment benefits expire. They were ready to move on without help for renters. They opposed another round of direct payments. Their starting offer for UI and rent relief was 0, 0, and 0 again. But the good news that transcends any of the obstacles that we faced is that in the final agreement, we will extend all 3 federal unemployment programs created under CARES. We will provide $300 in weekly federal unemployment benefits for the next 10 weeks. For families struggling to make ends meet, this bill will cushion the blow. A new round of survival checks will soon be on the way. $600 per adult, another $600 for every dependent in the household. Many of us would have liked that to be higher, but at least this is the way, the quickest way to get money into the pockets of the American people, sending their tax dollars right back where they came from. Of course, as I said, it's not as much as many Democrats and some Republicans would have liked, and we hope that next year the same bipartisan support that emerged behind $1,200 stimulus checks will propel even more assistance to working families. For the first time ever during this pandemic, Congress will provide $25 billion in direct rental assistance to help reduce the burden on Americans who have fallen behind on the rent. We also extend a moratorium on evictions to give our fellow citizens more time to get back on their feet. For small business owners, we're providing businesses the opportunity to take another draw of the popular Paycheck Protection Program. Crucially, this bill will provide $12 billion for minority-owned and very small businesses who struggled to access financing during the earlier rounds of PPP. Local newspapers and local broadcasters will have access to this assistance. Nonprofits, I worked very hard to see that happened. And our nonprofit religious institutions, our churches and our synagogues and our mosques, no collection plate, no income, but so vital to social services and so needed during a time of crisis, will once again get the help they need, something that I authored in the CARES bill. I'm especially pleased that this bill will provide money for bars and restaurants.
Guys, I'm pausing that. I will resume that. I'm pausing that because the same question keeps coming up over and over again. You heard Chuck Schumer say that is $300 a week for 10 weeks. That's number one. Number two, it's going to be from the end of December for 10 weeks. Number three, PUA and PEUC have been extended. Okay. This means that there is no retroactive payment, unfortunately, since the end of July. So essentially no retroactive boosters for August, September, October, November, and a majority of December. I see the same questions coming up, which is why I thought I would address that. And if you have any questions, go back and watch this video all the way from the beginning and watch our previous videos because you'll get the answers to a majority of your questions. I'm going to resume what Senator Schumer was saying. Let's resume that video.
$1 billion in SBA grants for theater operators and small venue owners through the Save Our Stages Act. These venues are so important to my state and many states across the country. They're the lifeblood of our communities. They were first to close and will be the last to open. The bill gives them a fighting chance. And of course, today's agreement will give a major boost to our battle against the disease itself. There will be more than $30 billion to support the procurement and distribution of the coronavirus vaccine, ensuring it's free and rapidly distributed to everyone. Today's agreement includes this and all more: support for child care, food assistance, agricultural relief, the Postal Service, and funding to help families gain access to broadband. So, the American people have a great deal to celebrate in this legislation, but of course, the agreement we reached is far from perfect. It leaves out state and local assistance, direct state and local assistance. Despite desperate pleas from governors, mayors, economists across the spectrum, Republicans stubbornly refuse to provide direct aid to state and local governments. Over 1 million employees, public employees, have already lost their jobs. It doesn't matter if you're working for a small business and get laid off, or if you're working for a government and laid off. You still need to feed your family. So why is there such a difference on this side of the aisle between these same people, flesh and blood? Because one works for a government, they don't get help. Because one works for a small business, they do. Both should get help. State revenues, of course, are significantly down across the country, in states red and blue. The continued opposition to state and local funding from Republicans remains deeply irresponsible. It will force states to make painful decisions to cut jobs, potentially raise taxes on working families. And It will hurt the economy of the entire country as millions more of government workers are laid off at a time when we're struggling to recover, hurting us all. Still, Democrats refuse to let state and local governments be completely left behind. Today's agreement does include aid for specific state-level expenses, $82 billion for education funding, $27 billion in payments for testing and state health care programs, $45 billion for transit systems. I'm very proud of the fact that New York's MTA will receive the money it needs to keep going. It is so vital to our city's economy and something I worked very hard for. Make no mistake, these funding sources are not a replacement for direct aid to state and local governments, and we Democrats will continue to fight for those in the new year. But in this case, a rose by any other name smells not quite as sweet, but at least it brings some relief. State and local governments will receive assistance in a number of different ways. Now, when this chamber gavels back in 2021, we must pick up where we just left off. We've given the administration a vital head start, but make no mistake about it, our economy is in a deep, deep, deep hole, in part because of the Trump administration's lack of policy in fighting the coronavirus. Now we will have to help them. This is a good start, but a lot more needs to be done. We must continue to protect people's jobs, whether they work for a company or a local government. We must do so much more. And we got to start building, stimulating our economy so it gets out of the hole with things like infrastructure and wiring every home with broadband and improving our health care and education systems and so much more, so much more. So let me be very, very clear about one thing. Once this deal is signed into law, it cannot be the final word on congressional relief. There is more to do in the new year with a new administration that has a much more favorable attitude towards giving the American people the help they need. The bipartisan agreement is simply a down payment. It will establish a floor, not a ceiling, for coronavirus relief in 2021. Mr. President, over the course of this challenging year, tens of millions of Americans have been pushed close to the breaking point. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their homes. Many can't feed their families. Many have lost neighbors, colleagues, friends, and family to this vicious, vicious disease. They have such great pain. Pain we can only distantly empathize with because it hasn't happened directly to us here. As the pandemic enters its worst phase, we will continue to be isolated from one another. But behind closed doors, desperation mounts for millions and millions of our fellow Americans. This bill is for them, to carry them to a brighter day. I yield the floor.
He said, this bill is for them. This bill is for you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'm about to show you comments from Josh Hawley, the Republican from Missouri. Before I show you the comments, I want you to know that Josh Hawley championed the $1,200 stimulus check, which of course didn't happen, as well as Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont. And Mitt Romney actually had proposed stimulus checks instead of state and local benefits and liability protection about a week ago, which, by the way, seems like a lifetime ago. At that point in time, he was soundly rejected, but guess what? That has ended up happening. So before I show you comments from Josh Hawley, I do want to let you know that some of you might get a little bit emotional because I thought Josh Hawley said things that that a lot of people would agree with. Whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat is not the point. I think the words that these individuals say is important because they are elected officials, and that's where things stand. Let's listen to what Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, said about the importance of the stimulus check, and he essentially thanked everyone who has been patiently waiting for a stimulus check. And unfortunately, for many of us, the truth is it is too late. But let's see what Josh Hawley from Missouri said, and let's roll the tape.
Here at the end of the year, reason has prevailed, sweet reason, and will now deliver a package of
Hold on,
almost $1 trillion.
let me just
And that's
forward
not one
that.
thing.
Sorry, I might have to forward the video. There we go. Just a moment.
I yield the floor.
Today to discuss the COVID relief bill that I understand is soon to be brought before the House and then to this floor. I understand that we have finally, at long last, a deal that hopefully will result in real relief for the American people. And there is a piece of good news that I want to be sure to note, and that is that this COVID relief package will contain direct assistance to working people. For every working family in this country that needs it, they will be, under this deal, getting a direct check, just like they did in March. Now, that is a victory, Mr. President. There's no two ways about it, and we should celebrate that victory, not on our own behalf, but for the many people in this nation who desperately need it, and who, until just a few days ago, could expect nothing at all in the way of direct assistance from this body. And I want to thank those who've worked so hard to make sure that this relief was available and is going to the working people of this country, not least the President of the United States, who has been very clear over and over again that he wants to see direct relief to working families, that it should be the cornerstone of the bill. And of course, I thank Senator Sanders for his strong stand on this issue, and it's been a privilege to work with him on it. So this is good news for working families, good news for working people just before Christmas when they need the help the most. But I have to say that the levels of support that I understand will be offered to working people are hardly adequate. And we should not pretend otherwise, Mr. President. $600 per person, $600 per child. This is a fraction of what was offered to working people in the CARES legislation just a few months ago. Legislation, I might add, that every member of this body voted for. Every member voted for. And now they'll be getting only a portion of that. It all adds up to about $100 billion. And we're told that there just wasn't enough left over. There just wasn't any more available for working people. But yet I noticed, Mr. President, that in the spending bill that we're also going to vote on as part of this package, a bill that costs over $1 trillion, we managed to have found $65 million for salmon recovery in the Pacific, $643 million to carry out international communication activities in the Middle East, $116 million for the Export-Import Bank, $118 million for that sterling example of international leadership, the World Health Organization, that has done more to undermine world health in the last year than I think any international organization in the history of the world. Then there's the so-called bipartisan proposal, which is the basis for the present deal. The bipartisan proposal, which included, I might point out, not a cent in direct relief for working people. Almost $1 trillion in costs, not one penny in direct relief for working people until it was added recently. That proposal included $20 billion for higher education, $20 billion. This going to many universities who have massive endowments worth billions and billions of dollars, most of that built on the backs of taxpayers, I might add. And yet, we cannot find any further funds to help working people in this country. I cannot help but note, Mr. President, that working people were the last consideration in the draconian shutdowns earlier this year that sent so many of them home, that cost them their jobs, that cost them their wages, that cost them their health care on the job, and they have consistently been the last consideration in COVID relief in this body ever since. And frankly, Mr. President, it's disgraceful, and frankly, it's unacceptable. So the work that we're going to do today, and I hope to see a vote on this floor yet today on this relief, it is a step in the right direction, but it is only a step. And I hope that it will be the beginning, Mr. President, of a better approach, the beginning of actually putting working Americans first, putting their needs, putting their independence, putting their strength, their families, their communities first. That ought to be the economic policy of this nation. That ought to be the economic policy of this body. And I can assure you that is the foundation on which economic recovery will be built. Because it's the working people of this nation who power the American economy. Don't believe anything else. We hear a lot about global capital. We hear about the need to secure the financial markets. Oh, and by the way, the Federal Reserve, we're taking back $430 billion from the Federal Reserve in this piece of legislation. $430 billion from the Federal Reserve, funded to the max. Wall Street funded to the max. But I say again, Wall Street, capital, the financial markets, they're not the foundation of this economy. The working people of this nation, the working people of Missouri, the working people of our other states, they are the foundation of this economy. And it is time that they were put first. First for COVID relief, first in our economic policy, first in all that we do. And so I hope, Mr. President, that this effort to get them direct assistance will be the beginning of a larger effort to orient our economic policy, the policy of this nation, around the strength and the independence and the needs of our great working Americans. And I want to end by saying thank you to them. Thank you to the working people of Missouri who have endured through this crisis day in and day out, who have gone to work as essential workers, who have taken care of children at home, who have missed shifts at work in order to care for loved ones, who have contributed food to others in need even when they didn't have enough food for themselves, who have gone without in order to see that their children could eat. The people of this country, the working people who have sacrificed again and again and again and have borne the brunt of this pandemic and have continued to show up for their families, for their communities, and for this country, thank you. Thank you for making this country work. Thank you for building this country as we know it. Help is on the way. Help is on the way in this bill, which I hope will become law tonight. But there is much more to do, and I, for one, stand ready to work to do it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
So those were comments from Josh Hawley. I hear a lot of, I saw a lot of comments as we are doing this video asking whether the bill has already passed. Okay, so there are 3 steps to this. Step 1, an agreement is reached. An agreement has been reached. Help is on the way. Step 2, the House and the Senate vote on it. That is expected to happen tomorrow. Step 3, the President signs it. That is also expected to happen very quickly after the House and the Senate pass the bill. I do believe that there could still be some last-minute haggling. Everything that sort of went back and forth, both the sides essentially having their own perspective. I talked about that extensively in this video, but we can expect to see the final draft of the bill very soon. It could be as early as tonight. It could be sometime tomorrow. I'll break that down for you, but you heard Chuck Schumer say, if you were watching Chuck Schumer, you heard him say that it's going to be for 10 weeks, the $300 a week booster. Is it going to be 10 or is it going to be 11? Chuck Schumer said it's going to be 10 weeks. So that is where things stand, everybody. Let's see if there is any new information that is coming in as we speak before I start to wrap up the video, everybody. But I hope you learned something new from this video, everybody. And I want our viewers and subscribers to understand that help is on the way. I definitely believe more definitely should have been done. But you can see this tweet on your screen from Heather Long from the Washington Post. And Heather Long responded to Jeff Stein's tweet, which I highlighted earlier. And Heather said there is a lot of much needed emergency aid in this compromise bill. The problem is that much of the employment aid is only extended until the middle of March, even though vaccines are unlikely to be available through most of the summer. This is a big point from Heather Long from the Washington Post, which by the way, is creates the possibility, the scenario for another stimulus package later. Now, let me be clear. What happens in the Senate runoff races in Georgia is going to matter a lot. And we'll know in, just over 2 weeks from now. So depending on what happens in the Senate runoff races in Georgia, if we have the Democrats in control of the House and the Senate and President-elect Joe Biden, then we could potentially see another stimulus bill in March. We'll wait and see what happens. But if the Republicans control the Senate, then I believe that it'll be harder to have another stimulus bill. Let's see what happens. Let's see what the people of Georgia decide. But in a nutshell, everybody, this was a comprehensive update for all of you. I hope you learned something new, everybody. If you did, please click like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. I appreciate you all. My name is Dr. Nitin Choda with Ignition Time. I have big goals and big aspirations for my entire community. I want you to essentially live in a world where you're no longer dependent on stimulus checks. I want you to live in a world, and I will get you there. I will help you get to a point. I will help you get to the promised land where you can make more money, save money, and invest money. But first, let's get through this horrific crisis. I want you to be in a situation where you don't have to be on YouTube looking at stimulus check videos and looking at unemployment videos on unemployment. Let's get through this first. I've given you the news. I will always tell you the truth wherever it might lead us. I have a lot of respect for you, which is why I'm telling you the truth. I'm not going to just lead you on or string you along. I'm going to tell you the truth wherever it might lead us. I do appreciate you. I appreciate you all very much. And all I ask is you please click like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping that we can see this bill passed by the House and the Senate in the next 24 hours and the president signing it into law. One more time, step one is the agreement which has been reached. What are the specifics? I covered many specifics in this video, and as the text of the legislation is released, I'll be announcing that on my channel as well. Step two, the House and the Senate will vote on it. That is expected to happen tomorrow. And step three, the president signs it. That's when it becomes law. And then you can start to see the money arriving anywhere between a week to as long as 3 weeks after it becomes law. So that's where things stand, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All I ask is you please click like, please subscribe, and please share this video with just two friends and family members. I would really appreciate that. So that's pretty much it, everybody. I'll start to wrap up now. If you have any questions, please type them out in the comment section below. Engage with our community, and I appreciate you all very much. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next episode of Ignition Time. I'm looking forward to talking to you all soon, guys. Take care. Bye. I appreciate you very much. Take care.